Hi there, welcome back. All right, so let's begin with our lesson on hair porosity. So first of all, what is porosity and I mean, why are they such a big deal? All right, so porosity, it's pretty much, in simple terms, it's how your hair shaft absorbs moisture, right? Absorbs moisture, absorbs products, absorbs water, right? So how well moisture penetrates into the cuticle layers of the hair shaft, right? So remember those cuticles, they are the outer layers that protect your cortex and your medulla as well, right? And remember your cortex defines your hair color, it defines, the texture of your hair, and it pretty much defines how your hair is going to look like. So it's really important for those cuticles to be able to, absorb as much nutrient as possible so that the cortex and the medulla can get enough nutrients. All right, so what are the three main types of porosity? So we have three main types. So low porosity, normal porosity, and high porosity. So this image, the cup image, I'm going to be going over this later on in another lesson where I share how to, determine your hair porosity. So according to your current belief, right? You believe that you can either have low porosity, normal porosity, and high porosity. So the low porosity here, we can see a hair strand, that's floating, not sinking, nothing, and then we can see another hair strand, in the middle, and then we can see another hair strand, at the very bottom, right? So low porosity, based on what you currently know right now, it means that your hair does not easily allow moisture in, no moisture out. Normal porosity means that your hair will allow moisture in and out at a reasonable time frame, right? And then high porosity means that your hair will easily allow moisture in very quickly, and also release moisture very quickly as well. So that's why you have problems with porosity and with your hair always being so dry. All right, so but let me just go over what each means in more detail. So low porosity. So remember those cuticle layers I showed you, those images of good news, bad news. So those four quadrants. So let me just briefly go back to that lesson um, on module one. So we can see the four types of cuticles of hair shafts at different stages. So we have the healthy hair, average hair, bad news, and breaking hair. So this will mean low porosity, this will mean normal, this will mean obviously bad news, high porosity. So let's go back to our lesson on low porosity real quick. Alright, so low porosity, it means the cuticle layers are tightly arranged and they are just arranged in the way they are supposed to be, and so moisture will go in your hair shaft at a reduced rate, and moisture will also evaporate at a slower rate, right? And good news for you is that it means you're gonna have a high moisture retention rate due to the secured and protective nature of the cuticles, right? And also one more thing is that usually with if you have straight hair, so type 1 or type 2 hair, usually the cuticle layers are arranged nicely. So that's why you can remember that back in the day when your hair was straight because you had relaxer in your hair, your hair felt smooth and you didn't have problems with dry hair then, right? So but now that you are you have curly hair, it is a completely different world, right? So a few things to note about low porosity, right, is that the cells of the cuticles are all permeable, which means that water can penetrate through the gates of the cuticle. So because I've read on some websites, including a major brand website, where they talked about the fact that low porosity repels moisture. Low porosity does not repel moisture. If your hair is repelling moisture, it means that you have a lot of build up on your hair, so you need to cleanse your hair with a clarifying shampoo, so your hair shouldn't be repelling any moisture. And the only thing is that it just takes a while longer for moisture to penetrate through those multiple layers of the cuticle levels, right? So just keep that in mind. Your hair does not repel moisture. Okay, and so also low porosity, it is genetic. It's something that you were born with, and the reason for that is because hair closer to your roots. So remember the last lesson I talked about the fact that when your hair grows from your roots, it is baby hair. It has everything in place. It is the healthiest hair you can ever have, right? Um, so porosity will be low, right? Because the cuticles are nicely arranged, right? And also because hair closer to your roots haven't gone through a lot of manipulation yet, right? Because they are probably just a few weeks old or a few months old, right? And so, yeah, the cuticle layers will be well arranged, and because of that, you're gonna have low porosity. Usually at the hair, towards your root, so it is completely normal. And the next type of porosity we have here is normal porosity. So normal porosity, so that's just normal, right? Because your hair will go through some sort of a manipulation, right? Combing, twisting, detangling, doing different kinds of hairstyles, crochet or whatnot, right? So it's completely normal, right? And another thing to note is that as your hair grows further away from your scalp, right, your cuticles will start to show some sign of distress, right? And that's mainly due to manipulation, which is completely fine. Again, I'm not telling you to not do anything to your hair, because your hair is your crown and glory, something that you can play around with and show your personality, right? So eventually those cuticle layers will chip off bit by bit, like I showed you in the previous lesson. So let me quickly show you that image again. So this is the image, where we have the cuticle layers that will get chipped off bit by bit, right? As your hair grows further away from your scalp, right? Because obviously you're going to do quite a number of things to your hair. Try out different products, crochet, box braids, um, different kinds of hairstyles, right? And so that's going to have a major effect on your cuticle layers, right? So, and then eventually, once they chip off completely, the cortex will be exposed, right? And by then, there's nothing you can do about it than to just cut up your hair, right? Like at that particular line, right? And I think I talked about that in the previous module. So when the cuticle layers one day, become raised and they start chipping off bit by bit, that means that your porosity level will be increased, right? So moisture can go in, much faster than when you compare that to low porosity, right? And as a result of that, moisture will also come out at a little bit, like a bit faster than low porosity. Again, remember, normal porosity, it is completely normal, and you're gonna find that hair in the middle of your hair shaft will probably have normal porosity, right? Yeah, so the mid sections of your hair shaft will have normal porosity, and every hair will go through some form of manipulation. It doesn't even matter if you have locks, right? Or if you always braid your hair, right? Your hair will still go through some sort of a manipulation. All right. So the last type of porosity level will be high porosity. So high porosity, this is really popular amongst type 4C hair. And the reason for that is because our hair, it is so tightly coiled, it is so coily. And I think I talked about that in the previous lesson, module 2, previous module 2. Our hair is so coily, and that disturbs the arrangement of the cuticle levels, right? Because when you compare that to straight hair, so type 1 hair or type 2 hair, the hair, it is straight, so meaning the cuticle levels aren't as disturbed as like type 3 or type 4 hair. So that's why a lot of ladies with type 4 hair, especially when they transition from relaxed hair, which is straight, to coily hair, natural hair, they have a lot of problems with dry hair because the cuticle levels aren't arranged as they used to when they were straight, right? Even though the cuticle levels are much healthier now, because relaxers actually damages your hair's cuticle, as well. So high porosity, it means your cuticle levels are raised. Bad news, right? As a result of that, your hair is going to absorb moisture at a much faster rate, and moisture will also evaporate at a very fast rate, right? And so that's why your hair constantly feels dry. So you can wash your hair now, deep condition everything, and then within 2 hours your hair feels dry again. Trust me, I've been there. I know how frustrating it is, right? So, and that's when you have problems with high porosity hair, and I just explained that it's because your porosity levels are raised, right? So high porosity hair, it is not genetic, because I've had people tell me, okay, so this is my hair type, I have a high porosity hair. High porosity isn't a hair type, right? Because remember the last module number 2, where I talked about three main hair types that defines your actual hair type. So your curl type, your density, and the volume of your hair. So porosity isn't a hair type, right? So stop defining your hair as high porosity, low porosity, right? Because nobody was born with high porosity hair. It's just just a result of sometimes um manipulation or hair damage, right? And especially hair closer to the ends of your hair. So in module number 2, I talked about the fact that you always need to keep the ends of your hair trimmed, because if your hand feels dry, sometimes it'll feel like your entire hair is dry, or it's unhealthy, right? So hair towards the ends of your hair will be more porous than hair closer to your roots, right? And that's because of cuticle degradation. Remember, I spoke about cuticle degradation in module 2. So that's when your cuticles will pretty much lose its scales bit by bit and not be as healthy as hair closer to your roots. And and that's a result of frequent manipulation that damages the arrangement of the cuticle layers, right? So yeah, so in the next lesson, I'm going to be going over why you have your current porosity. So why do I have high porosity? Because I do have high porosity, even though I don't really do much to my hair. So again, I'm going to be going over that in the next lesson. As usual, if you have any question, please leave it in the comment section below, and I'll come back and answer it. Thank you.